Good morning. Last night was my book launch for Salt Sisters. We did the launch by Skype, of course. I want to say thanks to everyone for joining, especially to the people who contributed. So my excellent host Dan, who kept the show moving, to my sister for leading the interview with me, and to my mum and Paul for giving excellent readings from the book. And thanks to all of you for coming, for showing your support, for all of your kind comments and your questions as we went. So unfortunately I was so nervous / tired that I didn't press record. I forgot to press record until partway through my mum's reading. So unfortunately I've clipped off the beginning of the event and we pick it up from partway through my mum reading an extract from Salt Sisters. But the rest of it's there. So please watch and enjoy. Thanks everyone.
Maybe it would be better if I went to Amy's and watched Betsy there. The last thing I needed was a bored, angry 8-year-old cooped up in this tiny place with me. What time was it anyway? I glanced at my phone. It was already after 10. Why had my alarm gone off? I had 3 missed calls from Mike. I called him back and he answered on the third ring. Izzy, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine, I mumbled. Just a bit under the weather. Where's Betsy? Oh, she's over at your mum's. We were knocking for ages at your door, but there was no answer. Oh, his voice was so loud. Every word made my head pound. Look, just take a day off if you're not well. There's no need for you to be watching her all the time. Let's share the work. Oh, just a couple of weeks into my role as co-guardian, and I was too hungover to perform my duties. I really was not up to this. Amy had way overestimated me. She would never have left me in charge if she knew what I was really like. I was just starting, and I was already failing.
Ah, bravo, Mum. Lovely. Thank you. It's so weird to hear someone else reading it. Gosh, yeah. Thank you. I think it's worth us sharing the story with everyone of when you first read the first draft, what your kind of your initial, I wouldn't say reaction, your initial panic was.
Well, it became obvious. Anyone's reading the book, it became obvious very early on that this is a story about 2 sisters. And then it became obvious that where there's 2 sisters, there has to be a mother as well. And I was thinking, oh God, no, don't let me be the mother, please God, don't let me. But then the story switched to where Izzy goes into the house and she sees Mum, and Mum is wearing a big orange cardigan. And I thought, oh, thank God, because I'd never wear a big orange cardigan, I'm safe.
Thank you so much, Mum. Thank you, and beautiful reading. And thank you again for all your help for reading all of those drafts and giving me all of those kind of little moral boosts when I needed it.
That was great, Catherine. Well done, you.
Thank you.
Catherine, did that take it back, hearing your mother reading to you there?
Yeah, that yeah. Well, it's a strange feeling as well to hear someone else reading the words I wrote. But yeah,
I'm sure it is.
Mums have got a lovely reading voice.
I think as well, you know, we can all relate, particularly this lockdown of waking up blurry-eyed, you know, with an imprint on the sofa when there's not much else to do. So certainly feel seen with that extract. But let's keep in the family. And obviously you don't have to have read it yet to know that this is a book about sisters. So who better to bring in now than your sister Beth? And Catherine, I think she's going to grill you a little bit about the book and maybe the book writing process. So if you can unmute Beth, let's hand over to Beth and let her take the reins.
Hi.
Hi,
Catherine.
There you go. Hiya.
Hiya. Sorry, I'm not really going to grill you.
Everyone, this is my lovely sister Beth. Some of you know her, some of you don't, but like we said, who better for a book about 2 sisters, who better to kind of chat to me about it than my own sister. So welcome.
Right. Hi everyone. Okay, right. Question number 1, Catherine. Where did the idea for the story come from? What was your inspiration?
So, well, as I was saying, I'd started last year writing different story. And then I had a conversation with someone, and that kind of got me thinking. And the conversation was with actually our friend Richard Foster, who we went to school with. And Richard was talking about his twin sister Anna, and about that Anna had basically asked. I don't know if I should say this really. Maybe I'll edit this out of the video when I post it. But Anna had asked Richard, if anything happens to me, I want you to look after my kids. You get custody of my 3 children. And Richard lives this fabulous life in Singapore. He works for Google, and I started thinking, well, that would be a bit of a, not a bummer, but a lifestyle change. And then I started thinking, oh wow, yeah, gosh, imagine if something happened to Beth, to my sister. And I think I've told you years ago, if anything ever happened to you, I would give up everything for your children. And I started to think, oh my God, but actually imagine if it did actually happen and you had to do that. And then listening to a podcast about where stories come from. And someone was saying, you give the central character a load of problems, and then you just pile more and more problems on their shoulders. So that was kind of where it came from. So I was sitting thinking, this would be a nightmare scenario, and then how do you make it more of a nightmare? Yes, good point. No spoilers.
No spoilers. Okay. So the relationship between Izzy and Amy is obviously central to the storyline, and it did remind me of us, but obviously there's a lot of differences between them and us. So just for the benefit of everybody else who's going to meet us in the next few months, can you explain how we are different?
Yeah, so the similarities I think are quite obvious. So it's 2 sisters, they're close in age, and one of them still lives in the place where they grew up, and the other one has moved to the other side of the world. And obviously, I think the way I approached kind of like thinking what the nightmare scenario was, I probably quite lazy writing, actually. I was thinking, what would be my worst nightmare? But then, Izzy isn't based entirely on me. She is supposed to be a bit extra. She is supposed to be a lot more selfish than I'd like to think I am. I do think if anything happened to any of my family, I do think actually if I was in the situation that Izzy finds herself in, I probably would use. I'd like to think I'd have more sophisticated coping strategies, but I probably would resort to some of the things that she goes through. They're quite different. I think it's more interesting though to think about the similarities, because really what this was about is the idea that 2 sisters, especially when there's just 2 of you, when you come as a pair, you're like two different versions of the same person. And how you can be so similar, but then even if your lives are totally different, you're actually still really, really similar at heart.
Yeah, that's definitely us. Definitely.
Yeah.
And of course, there's a second pair of sisters. There's the mum and Auntie Sue. So what aspects of our relationship inspired their relationship, if anything?
I mean, obviously they're a completely different pair again, but I think it's probably this idea that again, when the sisters and just a pair of you, I mean, it is such a unique and special relationship, but that you kind of mold yourself around the other one. So you see a lot of things, especially when Auntie Sue is explaining about their relationship and growing up and stuff. You see a lot of things where certain aspects of her character and her personality she's kind of grown into them by default because of how her sister was. And I think definitely that's something that I got from Me and You. So there's definitely, I mean, there's things and decisions that you've made in life and characteristics that you have because you wanted to be different to me. Actually, interesting story, and I was just thinking about this. The only reason I did my driving test was because you were about to do yours. And I thought, there's no way Beth can drive before me. And I'd been kind of half-assed about doing driving lessons for a few years, and that was the kind of the end of that.
Didn't that pass about 2 weeks before you did?
with me like racing to the finishing line. So I think when there's two sisters, you know, it's you're opposite, but it's also like a magnet, and you fit around each other. You're a little bit yin and yang, like two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. Okay. Why did you choose Sea Houses as the setting? And actually, someone's just asked a great question on the chat. How similar is Sea Houses to the Sea Houses in the book? How much is reality different to the book?
So when we were growing up, we were very lucky. Our parents had a cottage on the coast, Northumberland, and it's the most beautiful place. If you ever get the chance to visit, do. It's just absolutely beautiful. It's very rugged coastline, very natural. There are huge castles dotted around. There's miles and miles of like golden sandy beach. The only thing is it's bloody freezing all year round. But it's very picturesque. And I didn't choose Bamborough, which was the village where we had a cottage. I chose the next village along the Sea Houses. But I did shrink Sea Houses down a little bit. I made it a bit smaller and a bit more close-knit maybe than I think it actually is. So my descriptions of the scenery are hopefully quite accurate, but definitely my layout and geography it's not based at all on how Sea Houses really is.
Okay, how did you find writing about grief? Was it hard, given that it's not something we've really had to deal with?
Yeah, it's weird actually. It is strange that I chose to write, or that I ended up writing a story about grief. And like you say, when it is something that thankfully I've never actually had to go through, and I suppose that's maybe where I got away from the lazy writing and actually did some like thinking and a bit of creativity, because that's the part where I was really imagining what it would be like and what Izzy would be going through in that situation. But yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if it's accurate. But certainly there were parts when I was reading it back over to myself, because I finished the first draft in June, July. And there were parts when I was reading it back over to myself, and even now when I read back over it, I kind of get a bit like emotional, kind of get a bit choked.
Yeah, because I found the first few chapters really hard to read. It was about a sister's relationship. And it was really hard to read just the first few chapters, so was it hard to write?
Weirdly, no. Not in the sense of like, oh my god, I can't even see the keyboard for my tears. Nothing like that. I wasn't upset to write it. It was more like thinking how would pure anguish and pain like manifest itself? Like what would it feel like? What would she be seeing? What would she like? How would she be looking at other people? How would that affect her behavior towards other people? But it wasn't upsetting to imagine it, if that makes sense.
Obviously you've moved from a small village in England to Asia, just like Izzy. Izzy felt that she'd escaped. Do you ever feel that you've escaped?
No, that was another thing that was different. So obviously I'm trying to think how I say this without giving a spoiler. Yeah, I think I am, because it's on the back of the book. So there's this kind of hint that Izzy was escaping some kind of like family trauma, and there was some like secret in the past. And there was a reason why she wanted to run away or wanted to get far away. And you kind of, as the story goes on, you work out, you figure out what that reason was. I wasn't running away from anything. I feel like I was running to something else. And I love where I come from. I would be home all the time. I'm so homesick this year. I would be home all the time, especially if I could find a job in Newcastle. That would be there. I'm just thinking as well. Probably quite a few people thinking, God, Katherine sounds way more Geordie than I remember, and I should just
bring out the Geordie in you.
But this is how I normally talk, and whenever I talk with my sister or my family, this is kind of my default accent. It's just that probably over the years, and especially when I talk to other people, it tones down a little bit.
We just discussed how to say book in this call, because obviously we say book, being from Newcastle, But everybody else here will probably say book, and they'll probably, our accent's going to sound really strong, but I'm going to persevere with book because it's book to me.
No,
okay.
It's a accent.
What was your favourite character to write about and why?
Well, obviously I enjoyed writing Izzy, which is a good job because she's the main character. Apart from Izzy, I liked writing the kids, but actually my favourite was Mrs. Wheeler. And Mrs. Wheeler is sort of based on a friend who was very close to their grandmother, and their kind of like descriptions and some of the stories that I'd heard about their grandmother over the years, that was sort of the inspiration for Mrs. Wheeler. So it's a little bit of imagination, but also based on these stories of this like wonderful character that I'd heard about, and sort of imagining, well, what would that person do in this situation? That was quite good fun.
Fab. You've always talked about writing a book. How does it feel now that you've finally done it?
Like I was saying, weirdly a bit like, it's not like like I said to you all, I think this is the thing. See, I use all my best words in my writing, and then when I actually have to talk, I've run out of all the good things to say. But it isn't like running a race where you cross a finishing line. It's been a bit like I kind of finished the first draft, and then you do another draft, and you do another, and there can be infinite drafts, and you can keep working on it, and you could probably keep going at it for years and years and years. So I gave myself a target publication date, and I think probably right now that I'm like in my sequin dress and celebrating with everyone, now it's starting to feel a little bit more real. When I got the proof copies delivered as well, so when I held the book in my hands for the first time, that was quite a like, ooh, getting real moment. But I mean, you can write a book, but what makes a story isn't just writing it, it's having people read it. So, but I think probably by the time, like every time someone reads it and texts me and says, oh my God, I've just finished it, this is what I thought, that kind of makes it more real every time.
And any plans to write any more books? Books.
So the story that I started, I had actually got quite far through that when I kind of thought, oh, it's not good, it's not going the direction I wanted to. And then when I got the idea for Salt Sisters, that one, I think I am already like picking it up again. I think now that I've done this once, I kind of know what I'm doing a little bit in terms of the process. I've learned so much. And I'm really sure that the next one can be better. And then, as probably most of my friends know, I've had many ideas over the years, and I keep thinking, like, which one am I going to go back to now? So I've got a kind of a couple of ideas. So it wouldn't be, sorry to disappoint anyone, but it wouldn't be a sequel or a prequel or anything to Salt Sister. It would be an unrelated story. But I think it'll be another kind of family drama, bit of a mystery. Yeah, watch this space.
Excellent. Well, that was all from me, but I just wanted to end by saying in front of everybody, as your little sister, I am so proud of you. Massive congratulations, massive well done. I love you loads. I miss you. I can't wait to see you, and I'm sorry that we can't be closer to celebrate this.
I know, but we will
pandemic. But we'll see you soon, and we'll celebrate properly in person. Love you loads.
Thank you, Beth. So I saw tons of questions coming in.
There were, Catherine, and I've noted some of them down. So I think the ones I want to ask you now, we're going to hand over to your friend Paul shortly to read another extract from the book. So I thought before we do, just in case these characters are in there, there's a good question. I think it was from Michelle saying, if there was a BBC adaptation or a Hollywood film of Salt Sisters, who would play Izzy? And I thought I'd ask that question now. So if people haven't read the book, they can start to, you know, form a picture in their head. Dangerous, I know, when you're trying to pick out, you know, famous people to play them. But if you were the casting director and could choose anyone, who would it be?
Dan, you're asking this like I haven't already thought of it. So actually, I had thought Carrie, what's she called? Carrie Mulligan.
Yeah.
But I saw her in a film last night and she was excellent, but she's very, very thin.
I'm sure you can get her. I'm sure you can get her. There's a good chippy up there when you're on location, and you can.
How far would she go for her art? I don't know. It would be nice to have somebody like a British.
Yeah, a good British
actor. But.
And then Furhat, you know, also said who would play Mrs. Wheeler. Who have you got in mind for that character?
Oh.
Catherine, sorry, can I jump in?
Yeah.
Because Mrs. Wheeler in my head was Mrs. Convery from school, and I'm sure as our drama teacher, she would love to play Mrs. Wheeler in the film.
She's not old enough. Do you not think Mrs. Wheeler's...
You have to be a bit of a younger version of Mrs. Wheeler.
Well, there's some...
So Rosie's just saying Maggie Smith. I mean, I didn't want to say it.
In my head,
we better get this film made quite quickly, I think.
Don't know what the budget would be, but if they could stump out for Maggie Smith, I'd go for Maggie Smith. Judi Dench would be another good one, but Maggie Smith every time, really.
Well, Catherine, enough talking about the book. Let's have a listen to the book, and let's bring in Paul from the conversation. So maybe if you could introduce Paul, let us know how you know him, and then we'll hand over to Paul to read an extract from the book.
Yeah, so Paul finds his unmute button. So Paul is one of my, I won't say oldest, I'll say longest serving friends. And we met through work, goodness knows how long ago. And again, Paul was another big help, moral encouragement from the moment that I started saying that I was going to write a book through to kind of reading drafts, and not only reading drafts, but encouraging other people to read drafts and kind of badgering the group along. So, and he also has a beautiful reading voice. So
it's true.
Darling, we can't see you.
Oh, really? I don't know what to do. I can see me.
I can see you.
Well, then you're very lucky, because I'm a joy to behold.
Indeed.
It seems like it might only be me.
Sorry, Colin's trying to tell me something. Wait. Yes, all right. But Catherine couldn't see me. Gosh, bossy husband. Well, so can you hear me, Catherine?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So Catherine asked myself and a couple of other really close friends to read the book. And she gives me a lot of credit for sod all, because our other two really good friends, Helen and Bernadette, gave all this advice about law, the police and everything, because they were both law students, which is code for they were both in prison, but difficult. And I didn't. I read it and occasionally would sort of say something, but got absolutely engrossed in it. It really is such a good book. And I was so relieved, because I'm quite honest. And I thought, how difficult to tell your attractively challenged friend that, you know, aside from being ugly, they're also not very good. But anyway, it was great. And Catherine, thank you for asking me to read. You might have told me that your mum was practically Helen Mirren. So now I feel under huge pressure. But anyway, here we go. The sky had clouded over since morning, and a threat of dark grey rain was creeping in from the horizon. I tried to dislodge the idea that Amy's death might have been anything more complicated than a tragic accident. After Dad died, Auntie Sue used to take us for long walks on the beach. I decided now we needed a change of scenery and some fresh air before the rain started. Adam had pulled together some great outfits while packing my suitcase, but he hadn't included much outdoor gear. I went up to Amy's room to search for warmer clothes and came back downstairs in her sweater, fleecy jacket, barber coat, and walking boots. Oh my! Rachel's eyes glistened as she saw me. For a moment, I thought it was Amy. We walked through the village to the top of the coastal path that ran down to the wide sandy beach. The tide was out, and we had a huge stretch of golden sand between us and the water. I dug my hands deep into my pockets of Amy's coat, reaching for some warmth and shelter from the cold wind. The beach was empty, apart from a few dog walkers, and we set off towards Barnborough Castle. Betsy held Rachel's hand, and I wished she'd chosen me, even though I knew Rachel was more of an aunt to Amy's children than I had ever been. When Mike and Amy decided to start their family, I was still working in London and making the long trip up north every couple of months. I would leave after work on a Friday, driving up the A1 in my Corsa and getting to see houses just in time for last orders. The first time Amy was pregnant, I knew right away. There was something different about her, nothing obvious, just like she had a secret and was keeping it to herself. She hadn't even told Mike at that point, and when I pulled her aside to ask, she just laughed. A week later, she called me in tears. She'd miscarried at 6 weeks. Totally normal, she said. Happens all the time. Nothing anyone could do. Just wasn't meant to be. I got straight in the car and came to her. She stayed in bed for 3 days. When she eventually got up, she wanted to draw a line under it and move on. 3 months later, she called to tell me that she was pregnant again. I was going to be an auntie. Amy was made to be a mum. As a little girl, she'd had a collection of baby dolls that she lovingly cared for, bathing and feeding them in complex little routines and putting them to bed each night in their cribs. We were both committed tomboys and loved playing outdoors. But Amy would usually bring a doll, sorry people, it's a doll. Would bring a doll in her backpack to join us on whatever adventure we had imagined. I had no interest in dolls, but I would tolerate them for her sake. Mike took a while to adapt to parenthood, but for Amy, being a mum came naturally. She took everything in her stride and for the most part made it look easy. She and Mike would argue occasionally, especially in the early days when the shock of their new responsibility and lack of sleep would drive them to the edge of patience. But they were loving and they worked well together as a team. The babies were really silly in the early years, and Amy found it hilarious. I never tried to hide my disinterest, and it would drive Mum and Auntie Sue mad. They gradually became more interactive, the seeds of their individual personality beginning to grow. But I moved further away, and more time passed between my visits home. And the children and I barely knew each other. I watched Hannah now as she walked silently alongside me on the beach, looking down at her shoes. Lucas was picking up stones and hurling them out into the vast expanse of the sea, his little body contorting with the effort. Why hadn't Amy spoken to me about her will? Asking someone to be your kid's guardian had to be worth a phone call. Even a conversation by email would have been better than leaving a note. And why was Mike questioning her plan to put that insurance money in a trust fund? That was only part of Amy's will that made any sense to me. And where the hell was Mum? She always insisted how sorry she was about last time. But here she was, doing the same thing again. Why was it falling on me to pick up the pieces? Did my life not count for anything? The anger smoldered inside me. I balled my hands into tight, hard fists. It wasn't fair. None of it was fair. Amy should have been there. I took a deep breath of the cold, salty air and let out a belly-rumbling scream. Ah! Sorry, couldn't wait. Hannah jumped, startled by the sudden noise. Rachel snapped to a stop and spun to face me, instinctively grabbing Betsy's hand. A smile spread across Lucas's face. He turned to face the sea and screamed too. Within seconds, all 5 of us were standing in a line on the sand, screaming out at the tameless thrashing surf. The wind carried our cries out towards the horizon.
Thank you, Paul. That was very well read.
Oh, thank you. I'll mute now.
I especially like the dramatisation of the scream.
That's why I wanted to read it.
Katherine, I know we talked about the film adaptation, but I think when you've got the audiobook first, you've got a few contenders for that audiobook recording. So.
I could save a few bob if I get my mum to do it. Between the two of them, they've got it.
So I noticed in Paul's hand, this is a mock-up here, Paul actually has a copy of the book in his hand. So, Katherine, now is a good time. We'll tell people later where they can get their hands on said book. But we're going to do a prize draw now. So, Katherine is going to sign around 5 copies of the book. So just think in 20 years' time what you could get for this on eBay when Katherine's writing career is stratospheric. So, Katherine, shall I tell people how they're going to do this?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, well, you can correct me if I've gone wrong. So Katherine in Taiwan has got a set of cards. And she is going to ask, I think you're going to ask Paul, aren't you, to select a card, turn them around. And whatever number that you pick out, if it corresponds to your, this is where I'm getting lost now. If it corresponds to the last number on your door, you win a book. So if you live at 28, your magic number is 8. If you live at number 4, your magic number is 4. If you live at 364, your magic number is 4. So we could have a few rounds of this if it's just one thing. But Katherine, why don't you get the deck of cards in your hand and let's get Paul to pick.
I will. So it's half a deck, and I've taken out the queens and the kings and the jokers. So we've just got ace to 10 of 2 hands. So
Paul, if I say like fourth from the left.
You know what? I haven't shuffled them. I think I should probably shuffle them.
Oh, well then 8th from the left. I'm number 8.
Let me give them I'll give them a little shuffle, possibly fairer, isn't it? Okay, let me try that again. So which side is left, here or here?
Yes, there. So 4 in. 4 from there.
1, 2, 3. So this one. Oops.
Yeah. Yes.
That's the ace. So that's number 1. So anyone who put your hand up if you live at number 1. Mum does. Michelle. Of course, Michelle, famously. Numero 1. Does anyone else live at number 1? I don't think so. Okay, so we'll do another one.
Katherine, it's Helen. Katherine, Helen, we have 41.
Oh, so you do.
That's 2
Good
books.
job.
That's great.
So that's 3.
Are you giving your mum one?
Mum, will you sit this one out? Yeah.
Did I just win Helen? Did I just win Helen the book?
You did.
Oh. I felt that's just only appropriate. 7th. Stop.
What?
Stop. Okay, there. Yes, that one.
Oh, so this is number 2.
Oh.
Take that fur hat. Is that you?
Yeah, that's what I should.
That's me.
I'm at 2 temporarily, Katherine. My temporary address is 2.
My Auntie Anne also lives at number 22. Rachel, do you live at a number?
Yeah,
is 2 your lucky number?
Yeah, 82, Rachel.
I'm not lying.
No, that's true. That's definitely true. It's the name of the prison.
Yeah.
Oh, and Elise as well. Elise. So I think we're up to 5 now.
Yes.
I'd probably discount more than Auntie Anne because they're getting books anyway. So Dan, are you better at counting than I am?
Yeah, well, I had 7, including, well, if you take Anne off, that's 6. So I've got Jocelyn, Walter, Elise, Rachel, Helen, and Michelle.
Yay.
Walter is my uncle who's married to my Auntie Anne.
Oh, fine. Okay, well, they can share a book. And to be fair, we'll all be buying a copy anyway, Catherine. This is just to get the copy with your autograph on it. So
I know, and of course I will sign as many copies as my friends and family want. But this was just to another way to say thank you to everyone. And obviously, and sorry, Paul was right earlier. I don't think I did a thorough enough job of thanking my beta readers. So the beta readers are the stage in the process, the people who read quite a rough draft, which is actually quite difficult because I think not everything at that point in the story makes sense, and they have to go through and kind of tell you which parts don't make sense, and also which parts they don't like, which characters they don't like, which characters they do like, what annoys them. And so I had my mum, as I've already said. I had my Auntie Anne do it. Auntie Anne could consider doing it as a full-time job for based on what I've seen. And I also had Paul, my friend Helen Seymour, and my friend Bernadette McGee, and they all did an amazing job. So yeah, thank you all, thank you all very much.
And Catherine, just to say in the chat now, if you haven't seen, lots of bravo and kudos for Paul. So really well read. So if we don't come out of lockdown, I'm thinking Friday night story time with Brenda and Paul could be the way forward. And you'll have to keep writing the books to keep giving us something to listen to on a Friday night.
Tell you what, I would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning every Saturday morning for that.
This is the best Friday night I've had in a long time. Michelle says it's a perfect idea. So Catherine, it's almost like we work in communication and events, and we're actually sticking to time. So we're going to wrap up very shortly, but I've got a few questions for you on the practical things of where people can get hold of this. So my first question is, where can people get hold of this? Now, hopefully this will work. You say you should never work with, kids and technology and pets and everything. So, but let me try this. Alexa, add Salt Sisters by Katherine Graham to my list.
I added Salt Sisters by Katherine Graham to your shopping list.
There you go. If you've got an Alexa or possibly another speaker device.
There are other brands available.
There are other brands available. You can certainly do that. So, Catherine, Alexa said your name. You're really famous.
Dan, I'll be so honest. For a moment there, I thought you were going to get your cat to do something amazing. I was literally holding my breath. I was like, what? What has he trained Delilah to do?
Sorry, no, she's busy sleeping. Not that she hasn't read the wants to join in. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked because you were going to tell us where else people can get hold of this book.
So the ebook will be available exclusively on Amazon. It is published on the 11th of March. I have actually put it on there already, but I haven't communicated widely because I'm doing that in a couple of weeks' time. But it's going to be available at a pre-order price of 99p for friends and family, because I figured probably only friends and family will hear about it. And then the paperback will be available very soon after that date, probably within a few days or so.
And Catherine, do you know if that's going to be in the majority of countries that we're in? So if your friends in Taiwan or your friends in Switzerland or in the UK, can we get hold of physical copies of the book?
I'm international. Basically, if you've got Amazon, you can get the book.
Fantastic. And I think for all of us, we all love you. We've all loved being here tonight to hear.
Thank you so much. It's amazing to see everyone.
But we'd love to know, how can we support you to make this a success and give you the inspiration to write book number 2? Oh,
that's such a kind question. Thank you, Dan. I think the big thing will be, even if I'd love it for everyone to buy one. And the main thing that people can do is to read, to write reviews, to post reviews on Amazon, even if it's just kind of like a rating and a few words, but kind of post your feelings on Amazon, because I'm not entirely sure how the Amazon algorithm works, but it's a lot to do with kind of the number of clicks and the number of reviews the book gets in the in a certain period of time. So that's kind of that's the best thing that anyone can do. So when the book is published on March the 11th. If you can try and remember to post your review on that day or soon after. And also on Goodreads, if you're signed up to Goodreads.
So March, 99 pence, and that's probably like 200 francs in Swiss money. I was getting a bit of feedback.
Yeah, I didn't even hear what you said.
I was just reminding people that it's the 11th of March, 99 pence if you're in the UK, although that probably equates to about 300 francs if you're in Switzerland, because nothing is cheap in Switzerland, as we know.
And exchange rate.
A few more questions to wrap up, and then maybe, Katherine, people will just want to say a few words to you and you'll want to wrap up. But I spotted another question from Furhat in the chat, which was around writers who inspire you.
Oh, thank you, Furhat. I suspect that might have been Howard. Yeah, it's a good point, because I think, I'm not, this won't come as a surprise to anyone who's read any of my professional communication before, but I'm not a poet. I'm not literary. I was never going to write kind of a masterpiece. I wanted to write the kind of story that I like to read, which is kind of like a page turner, something where you're kind of very into the story and not necessarily like drowning in prose and kind of really fancy language. But that's, I do like to read that kind of book. I think I like to read a variety of, I like to read the books that I know I can't write as well. Tell you what I'll do. I will, and if you haven't seen my website yet, Katherine Graham -author, I will do a blog post tomorrow with some of the writers that I like to read, depending on kind of my mood and what I'm going for. Because there's probably too many to name.
And Katherine, did you have one thing I'm interested in is did you have writer's block at any point? And if so, what do you do? Do you just put your pen down? I'm thinking you're writing in pen. Put the laptop screen down and go for a walk, or how do you move forward if you've got a block in the brain?
I did do that. I got on the treadmill or went for a swim and that kind of thing. And actually, I think I did a lot of like figuring out the story, either running or hiking or doing something, some kind of mindless, repetitive activity.
Katherine, it was all going so well. We were okay with you, writing a book in lockdown whilst we've been sitting on the sofa eating chocolate and crisps. And now you tell us you were also doing exercise. So
sorry.
And there was a question from your mum actually, and a little look at, is there temptation to write in people you like or you don't like?
Oh yeah, well, Mum actually asked me that as soon as she'd read the first draft. She said, I thought I'd spot more people that I recognised. She's like, I couldn't tell who was who, and I'm like, they're not real people, Mum. They're made up. I actually had a bit of a problem, and I didn't realise this until Helen read the book, that I've named half of the characters, probably more than half, after members of Helen's family. Helen's one of my best friends. And then when my sister read the book, she said, well, I'm not giving away the storyline here, but Beth says you've got a Rachel, you've got a Carrie. Beth's best friends are Rachel and Carrie. Carrie's husband's called Phil. And Beth was like, you've named half the characters after my friends as well. So I think the name thing is quite difficult, because you just kind of pick names that you like and that you hear a lot. And I think actually with the characters, I kind of brought in different aspects of people who I know, definitely. So there's not one character where I can say this person is based on this real life person, but probably a combination of people I know.
And Katherine, I have to ask, has Igor read it?
Not yet. He's waiting till the reviews are in.
Excellent. Very, very wise. Now, listen, Katherine, it's a couple of minutes to 8 o'clock, so I think we'll end it there. I'll hand over to you, but just to say, it's been an absolute delight to host this. It's so nice to be on a call that isn't about work things, and to hear you talk so passionately about your book, and hear from your wonderful family and friends talking about the book as well. So I think I'll shut up now and hand over to you, Katherine, for the final words.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Dan. You did an amazing job hosting, as I knew you would. And just thank you to all of you for joining. This, like I said, it hasn't really felt like I've got to the milestone, but now seeing everyone and being able to like read your messages and seeing you on a screen, after tonight, I think it really feels like, yeah, this is really happening. This is on now, and yeah, I can't wait to hear what you all think of the book, because like I said, a story is only a story when people hear it. So thank you all for your support, and thank you all for encouraging me. I think I've kind of kept the guest list to people who have kind of nudged me along and given me moral support over the years. So thank you all very much for that, and yeah, look out for your Kindle.
I hope people can unmute themselves, or you can unmute them, but I want to give you a round of applause. So if you can unmute people, if not...
Thank you. Thank you.
Well done, everybody. Well done, guys. Well done.
Thank you. Love to you all.
Oh, actually, that was nice.
Bye.
It was great.
Sleep tight. Yeah, good. Sleep well.
Cheers, Bernadette.
Cheers, Catherine. Well done. Congratulations. Well done.
Thank you very much. Hi, Rosie.
Lovely. Thank you.
Well done, Catherine.
Well done.
I love that it's 3 a.m. in your world, and that's the Geordie. That must be the Geordie training, because God knows how you're doing that.
I had a disco nap and a Diet Coke. How are you? I love your jumper.
So proud. I know. Colour. So proud.
Thank you. Okay, I better go to
done.
Ciao. Where's Paul?
It was great.
Hey, Michelle.
Oh,
are
see
you,
you in.
darling?
I'm good. And Bernadette and Helen, and we see you in Geneva next year when this shit's over.
Yes, all this year, hopefully.
Yes.
And Rosie and
Michelle, I'll come and slum it at yours.
please do. I'll put.
Try and find a 12th bedroom.
Says the man from his chateau. Okay.
Oh, this is also true. Good night, everyone. Dan,
night, guys. Lovely to see you. Bye.
Bye. Well done, Catherine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very proud.
Bye.
Bye, darling.